My name is Chris LaRoche, and I am going to be giving a presentation today in our accessibility office hours about UX services. I just wanted to say, just to let everyone know, we are going to be recording this presentation, so people that didn't make it today can view that. Just wanted to give everybody proper notification that we will be recording this. Okay. Just a quick overview on our team. We are part of the Disability and Access Services as part of the Division of Student Life in DSL. Our mission goal is we serve both students, faculty, and staff at MIT, and we offer a bunch of different services. User experience consulting is what we're going to focus on today, and that's primarily done by myself and Catherine Wall. We also do accessibility consulting, which is done by Catherine Wall and our colleague Rich Calogero. We also do accessible course materials, which is done by Kate Quinn, Jen D, and Kathy Cahill. And we also do assistive technology, which is also done by Kate Quinn, Jen D, and Kathy Cahill. What we really want to talk about today is just exactly what we do and what the UX services offered are to the Institute. So we'll talk a little bit about our consultancy model that we have and the way that we work, the services that we offer, a quick overview of best practices, and then questions. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box, and Catherine will be handling those, and then we'll answer the questions at times when we take a break or at the end or both. This accessibility office hours really is a monthly event. It's to share information about accessibility and user experience issues and concepts just related to the Institute. It's primarily focused on accessibility issues, as that's the most prominent, but user experience is another thing that we're doing and have been offered for quite a long time here at the Institute. Also, if anybody has any questions or suggestions for future UX topics, if you'd like to hear more about that, or trainings or meetings, just please let us know. You can put it in the chat box and Catherine will be monitoring that. So our primary goals as the UX consultancy here is we actually provide free user experience reviews and consulting to MIT or to anyone at the Institute. We also really want to build an awareness and understanding of the concepts of usability user experience across the Institute on a variety of levels. We also, as our main focus, is to provide the consulting services to clients, which are everyone at the Institute, faculty, staff, students, postdocs, anything like that. And also we try to tailor to the needs of each client because everything can be uniquely different depending on your DLC. We also facilitate training sessions, workshops, and talks about user experience. We do it during IAP, but we also can do it for DLCs as well. Our main thing is to assist product development groups, DLCs, and the overall MIT community, and how you can apply these principles to their work, and also just to make things overall more usable throughout the Institute. Within UX, there's really a division of three groupings as UX has really evolved. And there's two of the three there's three here, and two of the three are ones that we really focus on in our consultancy model. User research or research is really understanding the user's needs and understanding goals and behaviors of users that help you when you're implementing or updating your own particular website, software, application, app, or workflow and process. Design is really creating and designing the user interface of the user experience. And the last one is evaluation, which is once an interface or a product or even a prototype is in a working state, we work with users to test and evaluate it to see if it meets the user's goals and needs. Within our group, we primarily focus on research and evaluation. That's the strength of Catherine and myself. We don't really do design for a variety of reasons. It's not really our expertise, but it also is many organizations within MIT, they often will hire an outside design firm to design the interface, but often they don't have the resources. They want to kind of work with us, a lot of times the design firms, to do some user research just because of the nature of MIT and it's kind of fairly unique culture on how to get information and obtain information. We really did start off as an evaluation and used to do usability testing 12, 15 years ago. And our consultancy has really evolved much more into a research and evaluation model, as well as doing lots of training and workshops and things like that. I'm going to go over a list of the primary methods we use in our research and evaluation. And again, you can find all this information as on our website, which is at ux.mit.edu. We have a full section on user experience, which gives a tremendous amount more of information than I'm giving today, just about particularly the methods and some of the things that we do offer. These are the primary methods that we use. Again, we can tailor it to specific needs, and we also kind of do other things too as needed, depending on the context of the situation. Card sorting is one thing we do, and that's really important when you're trying to find out the organization of a new website or you're redoing a website. It really focuses on the navigation labeling of the proposed website or the revamp of a website. Comparative research is one of the methods we use in our field where we don't involve users. But for example, if you're redoing a website for a chemistry department, for example, we could look at comparative sites such as ones that maybe Stanford might have or Harvard might have, and just see what they offer that's different, better, and worse. And it's really just kind of using almost as a benchmark. Expert in design reviews are something we do, particularly when you're probably in the early design process and you might have mock-ups or prototypes before you've started the entire development process. And that way we look at it from both an accessibility and a usability overview of just the primary things. For example, such things as, are the search box in a location where it's expected? Do you have color contrast that seems to be appropriate? Do you have potential menus or mega menus that are consistent and standard? And again, these are very high level things. And again, we only look at it using our expertise as usability and user experience experts. But doing this early often is a good way to kind of stop any potential big issues that might come up if you don't have any type of evaluation or design review later in the process. This can really help mitigate that. We do something also called reverse card sorting, which is also called information architecture validation. If you have done some card sorting in the past and you have your labeling and navigation set, this is a good way once it's set up and created to test it to see if it does match the user's expectation of where they would go to find information in a global menu or in a navigational menu, and also does the labeling make sense to the users. Quite often you have many types of different users, so you want to make sure that your language will be actually applicable to everybody so they can find what they need. One of the most common things we do is surveys. I think everybody does surveys. Our expertise really is working on creating surveys and coming up with questions that are as free from bias and as neutral as possible, and then targeting the appropriate group or population that would be applicable for that. Again, we do this, and there's also, I'll talk more about it, but there is actually an institute-wide survey tool that's actually quite good that people can use. We also do usability testing, and that's what we were originally known for. We mostly moderated testing is when we actually work with a participant and then go through a set of tests, go through a set of tasks, and people go through either a website that's either in process of being developed, it's just been released, and they want to see if it works, or if you're going to go and do a revamp, they might want to do a test of the existing site to see what works and what doesn't. We used to have a lab, but right now, even before COVID, we started doing everything remote, as that's where the field is really going. And in some ways, it gets us a much better wide berth of population of potential users, so that's good. We've also started doing unmoderated usability testing, which is more for the general public or people or for websites that are geared outside of the MIT community, and there are a lot of them. One of the things with this is it has a benefit of it's much, much quicker. We also have some third-party software we use for this. But the thing about this is we have a set of tasks, we set it up, and we use a panel of people who are provided by this third party that we're using. So the benefit of this is that we get video clips and we can turn it around very quickly. The downside is there's not a moderator there to actually ask additional questions like you will in the other type of tests, where you can kind of get some more in-depth analysis. The unmoderated test is usually a good way to get a high-level overview of if people can understand or use the website. And then if you want to get into more detail, the moderated testing is often much better. The other thing is user interviews. We do a lot of user interviews, and this is particularly good when you have a kind of a workflow or a process that could be a little complicated or not clear. So it's a good way to kind of clear up some information, particularly before you are building out a software application or a website, or you're going to revamp and see what works and what doesn't work. We do a lot of different interviews, and it really can vary on how many people we talk to and what topics we've talked about. I mean, in my decade-long career here, the amount of interviews we've done on such an incredibly wide variety of subjects is just kind of beyond what I even knew existed before I came to MIT. Before I go on, I just wanted to see if there were any questions right now. I know I've talked fairly quickly about who we are and the methods that we use, but I just wanted to know if anybody had any questions before we move on. Okay. So how does our department work with you? So as I said, we're available to the entire MIT community to discuss and recommend user-centered design options for your needs and what they might be. Our services are free of charge to the MIT community, so that makes us rather popular. The cost, though, is time. There's basically 3 of us that do the accessibility and usability evaluation, and 2 of us that work on the usability portion, UX portion. So we actually talk to people, but sometimes we do have a little bit of a backup depending on our schedule and also what your needs are. So we actually ask, and it's preferable if you can kind of work with us early, especially like when you're going to start a project or do a redesign, or if you're working with a third-party design firm. We can also be involved and do things that they might not be able to do. We also are eminently flexible in our methodology, and all those methods that I talked about, they're usually at specific points in a process, but we have also been really good at adapting them to work in particular context and times. And so we can assist you at any time. So quite often we'll come in, for example, user interviews might be done in the middle of a process where it normally wouldn't be done, but we can do that. We can do a few and then turn that around for you. So when you do a revamp of your website, or if you're doing software or an app, that might be very helpful. We have a variety of tools and methods. We try to assist clients, and one of the things, besides being very flexible with our methodology and time, we just always try to assess and balance the user needs, the business or organizational goals of what you're trying to do. We also understand the technology constraints, because we've worked in technology for quite a long time, and then try to work with your schedule as best as we can to provide the best possible user experience within the confines of all of those limitations that I just talked about. So we can juggle things and can try to do like even a very small targeted things in a certain amount of time if needed. To be perfectly honest with you, like our projects in UX, I'd say about half of them come from new inquiries and people that don't know about us and want to learn more or have a need. And about half of it has been from, as we like to call, repeat customers, projects that we've worked on over the years, and they're going through iterations, and people that we have worked with and know what we do. And some of the people even know, like we've done certain methods with them, and they're like, well, I think we need to do this right now because we're at a certain process. So maybe we need some unmoderated testing or things like that. So our client base really is about 50-50 from new people to existing clients coming back. What I want to talk a little bit now is about the best practices that exist in UX, which are at best, let's just say, fuzzy. Part of the overall issue in understanding in the standards of user experience is the context or context of use. So within UX, more so than almost anything else, context is critical and needs to be understood within a product. And what this means is that depending on who your users are, I mean, sometimes having a system that's very complicated in a legacy system might be more usable if the people have been using it for a certain amount of time, even if it's not theoretically usable, where depending on your population base, sometimes it's worth it just to do a whole new system and start new and use all the best practices to design the interface. The same thing is true with the process too, and it's particularly at MIT, a lot of the processes we have kind of been organic and evolved over time. So we kind of try to go in and understand the context of what the process, workflow, or UI is, and then make recommendations based on that. And obviously best practices and standards always try to come into play, but we also have to just have that extra caveat of understanding just because it's a best practice, it might not be applicable to a situation. That being said, it also makes standardizing usability and user experience very difficult, but we will try. And this is one of the things, I was never a huge fan of ISO stuff. I understand its importance, but I also found it tended to be a little bit stilted at times. And there are several different ISO standards out there around usability. This is about the best, and this
Chris, we lost your audio there. Chris? Oh, there he is. Chris, we lost you for a minute there.
I'm sorry, my internet connection went unstable.
Oh, okay.
Was I talking about context when you lost me? Or
no,
what?
You were right at the ISO standard.
Oh, okay. Let me just go back to that. So, apologies for that, folks. The home network's getting a little overloaded this morning, I think. So the ISO standards are, they are a little bit kind of, I would say they seem a little wordy, but this one particularly really seems to fit exactly what we do. It is really the best standard out there for ISO standards and usability. And it really talks about the extent to which a product can be used by specified users to achieve specified goals with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in a specified context of use. Now, even though there's a lot of word terms specified used there 3 times, it really does narrow down exactly what we try to do, because we do realize that when we're working in a user experience context, people have specific goals they're trying to do. And it's usually trying to do it as effective and efficient and productive as possible. And we try to really always keep that in mind when we're working on evaluations and research with people, because it can be extremely contextual to how it would work for them and how people need to do their job. Now, there's a couple of websites that really exist as the best practice. Again, as I said, standardization can be very difficult in user experience, but there are some best practices that really come from the field of human factors and just how humans process information, how much information they can absorb at once. And actually, the 2 best sites out there are the United States government has a usability website called usability.gov. And they have created the last few years one called the Web Design System, which is really good about giving information about particular widgets and user interface standards. The usability.gov focuses just a lot on how to interact with the site, how people think. These other 2 websites, this is a web style guide. This has been around for about 20 years, and they recently updated it about a year ago. And this is just a really good way to think about about content from the web and how to put content in, how to make it much more accessible on the web for people to read and understand. And also this consultancy, Nielsen Norman, they're 2 of the giants in the usability and user experience field and evolution. They have a consultancy, but the one thing is they have a great amount of articles on every aspect of UX under nngroup.com. And I would strongly recommend that people, if you have any questions or you want to read more about a particular topic, they're really, really good. And a lot of us that teach in the UX field actually do reference a lot of the articles that they have under the Nielsen Norman group. There are both resources and tools that are available to everyone on campus, and then we'll explain the tools that we use. As of about 2 weeks ago, the entire institute should have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud or Create Cloud. The thing is, this obviously allows you not only to create PDFs and modify them and do accessibility checks, it also allows you to manipulate it. It also allows you access to have some of the tools a lot of people in UX use for prototyping, particularly InDesign and XD these days. So that's kind of the behemoth of a lot of prototyping tools. We also have the availability of Qualtrics, which I mentioned earlier, which is a survey tool. It's institute-wide. Anybody with a curb can use it, and it's a very good and comprehensive survey application. You can do logic with it, so you can actually split things off, and there's just a lot of flexibility with it. I have here the UX tools that we use for our research and evaluation. Again, these are what we use, and we can't loan these out. We only have a single license for this for our department, but this is how we do some of our work. We have something called User Zoom, which is a comprehensive UX tool, but we use it specifically when we do the unmoderated usability testing on a larger scale with participants outside of MIT, because they have a panel. So if you really want to, if you do have a focus on a website that you really want to get feedback from the general community or somebody outside of MIT, it's a really good way to do that. Also, this gives you videos if you want of the usability testing. As a rule, we do not do video recording when we do moderated tests with people internal to the Institute. It is kind of a best practice within the field, but culturally we found that it doesn't really work, and people are a lot more forthcoming when they realize they're not being videotaped. So we don't do that for moderated tests, but for unmoderated tests with User Zoom, we do. And sometimes you can get some really good effective clips of how people interact with something that can be quite powerful when you're showing that to people, to developers or project managers or directors. The other main tool we use is called Optimal Workshop, and that's really a user research tool, but it has several options within it. We can do something called Optimal Sort, which is again a card sorting tool that's electronic, and so you can reach a lot more people that way. The other thing we have is called TreeJack, which is the reverse card sorting tool, the information architecture validation tool, which is a really good way to test the navigation labeling of something before the design is implemented. We also have something called Chalkmark, which is a great first impression software. We put screenshots up and have a bunch of tasks, put a screenshot up, and then we ask them where they would go first. So it's a really good kind of initial impulse first impression software. And that's a great way to see how people are thinking and understanding their model of how they're working through a website. And lastly, I would just say, if you have any questions or you want to use our services, you can just email us at usability@mit.edu, and most of the team who works in usability is on that, so we'll reply. Generally, if you are a new client, we ask just to have a brief online meeting about half hour, just to kind of understand what you're looking for, and then we can see how we can suit and tailor our needs and your needs to what we do. And also, we have a tremendous amount of information on our department website, which you can just go into ux.mit.edu. It's also under studentlife.mit.edu/DAS, but ux.mit.edu will get you all the information that we've discussed today, as well as some presentations, as well as some more details about the methods and the services that we use. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, or if anybody wants any further information right now, I'm quite happy to do that.
Thanks, Chris. We had one question, and it was about, Cheryl asked if we were available to provide guidance on making accessible PDFs, for example, ensuring accessible output when exporting PDF from InDesign. And then I think Rebecca chimed in and said there's a session tomorrow from Open Access in their webinar series on creating accessible PDFs.
Oh. How timely.
Which is good. Yeah, Open Access does a lot of free webinars about accessible PDFs. We have 2 demo videos up on our site as well on creating accessible PDFs and PDF forms. And there are some resources listed there to help you. We can, of course, help, sort of check the PDFs. We don't really have the staffing to remediate a lot of complicated PDFs, but there are companies that can do that, like Open Access. But we're happy to help with the checking to see sort of what's wrong with the PDF and how much work it would take to fix it.
Good point. The other thing, if there is something that somebody is particularly interested in or would like to hear more about, you can also email us at that usability@mit.edu, or put in the chat box any future topics about user experience that you might want to get some more detail on, or if your department wants a presentation or a workshop about a particular thing that we do in general, we're available to do that as well.
I don't see any more questions coming up. I did want to say that our next office hours presentation is October 21st, and we'll be talking about accessible PowerPoint and how to make your PowerPoint presentations more accessible. So look for a notice to register for that. And all of these presentations are live or captioned and available as videos on our website, ux.mit.edu.
And this one will be posted within about a week, 10 days?
Yeah, a week to 10 days.
Yeah, okay. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Again, anybody has any questions, you can email us or we'll stay online for a little bit too. Thank you so much.